What if there's a hidden code running our entire universe? A simple, repeating pattern that dictates everything, from the way an atom spins to the expansion of the cosmos itself. It's a pretty wild idea, and it could reframe everything we think we know.
See, if you start thinking this way, our biggest cosmic mysteries completely change. They stop being flaws in our understanding of physics, and they start looking more like features of a universal operating system. The expansion, the structure, even all the invisible stuff out there. It might all just be part of a grand cosmic calculation.
You know, for decades, we've understood that the universe is expanding. But the real shocker was discovering that this expansion is actually speeding up. Something is out there actively pushing galaxies apart. We call this mystery force dark energy. And get this, it makes up nearly 70% of everything. We can see what it's doing, but we have absolutely no clue what it actually is.
And then you've got dark matter. When astronomers look at galaxies, they're spinning so incredibly fast, they should just fly apart. There's not nearly enough visible stuff, stars, gas, dust, to hold them together with gravity. So we've had to assume there's some kind of invisible dark matter providing all that extra gravitational glue. And again, we can measure its effects, but we can't see it or touch it.
And this brings us to one of the biggest headaches in modern cosmology, the Hubble tension. Here's the problem. When we measure the expansion rate using light from the early universe, we get one number. But when we measure it using stars in the modern universe, we get a different, faster number. And these aren't small mistakes. We're talking about two incredibly precise measurements that flat out contradict each other. Physics just isn't supposed to work that way.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll do a quick recap of these huge cosmic mysteries. Then, we're going to introduce this radical idea of a universal 369 code. We'll explore how it claims to hack our ideas of dark matter and dark energy, how it might just solve the Hubble tension, and finally, we'll get to the most important question in all of science. Can you prove it's wrong?
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Cosmology's Great Mysteries. And these aren't just little questions we have. These are fundamental puzzles that are really challenging the foundations of physics as we know it.
So let's just put it all on the table. We've got some unknown energy pushing the universe apart, we've got some unknown matter holding it all together, and we have two completely different measurements for how fast the whole thing is happening. This isn't a situation where you just tweak a few equations. This feels like a sign that we might be missing something really, really fundamental about how the cosmos actually works.
Okay, so now that we've laid out the problems, let's pivot to a really different kind of framework. One that suggests a single, kind of elegant solution to all three. This is where we get into this idea of a universal 369 code.
This entire perspective comes from the work of a researcher, inventor, and author named Kevin L. Brown. And what he's suggesting is that the key to unlocking these cosmic puzzles isn't some new particle or some new force, but an ancient, universal pattern that's been hiding in plain sight the whole time.
He calls it triune harmonic dynamics, or THD for short. Now, that's a big name, but the core idea is actually pretty straightforward, that all change, all evolution, everything that exists follows a repeating three-phase cycle, a rhythm based on the numbers 3, 6, and 9.
And this right here is its central equation. Now don't worry, don't get hung up on the math itself. The best way to think about this is like it's the universe's source code, a single, simple algorithm that basically tells everything how to transform over time.
So what is this 369 pattern exactly? Well, the key thing to get is that it's a cycle. The number 3 stands for emergence, the birth of a new idea or a new state of being. The number 6 represents contrast. That's a period of tension, conflict, and testing. And finally, 9 represents integration, where that conflict gets resolved into a new, higher, more complex level of order. And that new state then becomes a starting point for the next cycle. It's birth, struggle, resolution. And then you do it all over again.
Okay, so how does a seemingly philosophical cycle of 3, 6, 9 help us with hard physics? Well, this is where that computer analogy becomes super powerful. Let's see how this theory tries to hack the very ideas of dark matter and dark energy.
From this point of view, dark energy isn't some strange, mysterious force. It's just the universe's processing overhead. Think about it. As the universe renders more complexity, more galaxies, more stars, more life, it takes more and more computational work. Well, all that work gives off a kind of thermodynamic exhaust, and this exhaust is the repulsive force we measure and call dark energy.
And the explanation for dark matter is just as clever.
THD describes it as the unrendered cache of the universe. Just imagine it as information that exists in the cosmic code, but it just hasn't been rendered into visible matter yet. It has mass, so it has gravity, which is why it provides that invisible scaffolding for galaxies, but it stays unseen, kind of like the code for a character in a video game before that character actually pops up on your screen.
Okay, so this framework offers some really interesting ways to think about dark energy and dark matter. But can it handle the big one? Can it solve the Hubble tension, that direct, undeniable contradiction in our best measurements of the universe?
So let's just quickly recap the conflict. On one side, you have our measurements from the cosmic microwave background. That's the afterglow of the Big Bang, and it gives us a slower expansion rate. On the other side, measurements of nearby supernovae in today's universe give us a faster rate. Two different time periods, two totally different speeds.
The THD solution says this isn't a conflict at all. It's a rendering mismatch. Think of it like this. The early universe was like a simple program running on a brand new computer. It was super fast and efficient. The modern universe, though, is incredibly complex and dense. It's like trying to run a massive modern video game on that same now much older hardware. It's just going to run slower. So from this view, the Hubble tension is just the measured speed difference between these two different processing eras.
Now, this is a fascinating idea, right? But for it to be actual science, it has to be testable. There has to be a way to prove it's wrong. So how could you possibly falsify the theory of a programmed universe?
Well, the theory makes a very specific and very testable prediction. If the universe is rendering itself based on a code, its expansion shouldn't be perfectly smooth and continuous. It should happen in tiny, discrete jumps, like pixels loading one by one on a screen. The test would be to use our most powerful telescopes to measure the light from the most distant objects with incredible precision, and look for a staircase pattern in the expansion instead of a smooth curve.
The stakes here are really simple and clear. If we find that the expansion of the cosmos happens in these little quantized steps, the theory gets a huge boost of support. But if we find that it's perfectly smooth and continuous, well, then this entire framework is false. That is a clean, straightforward, falsifiable test.
So where does a cosmic program like this even lead? The theory proposes a final end state, but it's not the cold, empty heat death that we usually imagine. Instead, it offers this really poetic conclusion it calls the null state. And as the source material puts it, this is the moment the song is perfect, and the music finally stops because there are no more notes left to play. Every calculation is complete, every conflict resolved. So, that was a quick look into the triune harmonic dynamics framework from Kevin L. Brown. Look, whether it's ultimately proven right or wrong, it offers a totally radical and fascinating new way of looking at our cosmos, suggesting that its deepest mysteries aren't flaws, but are actually features of a universal code, just waiting for us to finally learn how to read it.